The breadth of the musical equipments and the technology that we were using for this album is pretty cool. In terms of synths, we were using the Korg Minilog, both as a MIDI controller and to create really cool synth sounds, keyboard sounds, string sounds.
I gave you the seed, just feel it out though.
The seed. Okay, let's go. Jay also was in possession of a vintage Juno that we used on a lot of the songs, as well as a vintage Moog synth bass. So those were the primary synths that we were using. Jay's wife, Jenna, is a music therapist and had this really cool hand sonic drum that was used for music therapy purposes. And we repurposed it and we used it to create all of these super trippy programmed drum sounds. And in terms of guitars, there are so many different guitars represented on this album. I have 3 Breedloves now. Jay has a Taylor. We used my Music Man Ernie Ball St. Vincent signature model. I have a Fender Duosonic. I have a Fender Telecaster. All of those were used. Jay has a Fender Strat. That was used. It's not a Mustang, but he has a really cool little bass that is really high frequency and it's yellow. I'll have to ask him what it's called. I can't remember what it's called, but we use that for most of the bass on the album. Instead of like a P bass or a J bass, we use this like really weird sounding bass for most of it, supplemented with a bunch of different synth bass passes. And then in terms of pedals, I work with Keeley Electronics, so on my pedal board I just have Keeley pedals, and they have this really cool pedal called the Synth 1 that they had just come out with when I started production on this album. And so actually a lot of the background vocals on the album are not just processed in the box. A lot of them were run through a whole guitar pedal chain. And created these very eccentric background vocals. Like on Summer, there's this part during the second verse that sounds like there's a sitar playing, and it's just my vocals going like ooh through the Synth 1 pedal because it distorts the signal to sound like sine waves or square waves or triangle waves, and it's really, really cool. So we use that to make a lot of sounds, and then we ran a lot of the tracks through. Jay has an old tape machine with little cassette tapes, and we were using it as an effects workstation most of the time, like creating different levels of distortion, but a lot of the time we would then take tracks, record them to the tape, play them back, and distort them even further, and just do this crazy tape loop where we would be recording things to the tape and then recording it in the box and then running that back through the tape. It's how we have a lot of analog distortion happening throughout the album. And it was just fun to mess around with all of this different tech and see how we could do things in an innovative way that I certainly had never done before and was maybe uncommon for, more contemporary pop or rock music.